welcome to Guardian Yeti Squad, and today is not going to be an arena focused video. It's instead going to be a video focused on a very key concept of Magic the Gathering that usually most new players fall into. And in fact, this is actually a question coming from one of our subscribers on Facebook. So if you want your question answered on Facebook, or if you want your question to be answered through a video, please make sure to follow the link below to a Facebook page where you can be a friend to me. Now, we are going to go over how to best determine your land base. Because in Arena, it just throws a bunch of lands in there and hope to God it works. But for decks like Yorion and Commander, which is the bases I'm going to be using, so real life Commander, how do you adequately build a deck with lands in it? And I'm going to be talking about the basic land side of it, because sometimes, especially like in draft, for example, where this may come up, it's kind of nice to have quick and easy math for you to use that is statistically available for you to understand how to perfectly affect your game. So, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me if you like this type of videos. It's a few first ones for me, except for like Brawl, for instance, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, let's start. Oh my god. Alright, so this question from Facebook came from Gabe Itch, who says, how do you determine how many lands go into a deck of each type? I keep drawing the lands that I do not need at the right time to the point it affects my game. Now, there could be many of reasons. Probably you shuffled wrong, probably you did all this. But I'm assuming that this person has shuffled well, his opponent has cut, he's drawing his 7 cards in hand, and everything is plains, but everything else is like swamps. Okay? That's what I'm assuming. His lands are plains, but everything he has is swamps. It reminds me of that old song, got all these spoons, but all I need is a fork. It just reminds me of that. So how can we statistically help ourselves? And there's a few ways. There's a few methods. But the method I have fallen onto for building my real in-person decks comes down to a simple concept that most people learn in 4th grade, surprisingly, that they don't really think about when they're actually building a deck. But it's actually very crucial for this one. And it's the marble problem or the deck of cards problem. Now, you're going, what? What's that? I don't even remember that. Well, these are probability problems in which, let's go with the marble problems. Let's go with the deck of cards problem, because that's a little bit easier to explain. So you have a solitaire deck. So a solitaire deck just means hearts, clubs, spades, diamonds, and each suit has 13. Okay? And you shuffle that deck up. Okay? You shuffle it up really hard, and you are forced to draw a card. And what is the probability of you drawing a heart? That is the deck of cards problem. Now, this usually doesn't come up in real life, but for Magic the Gathering, this comes up a lot. It determines your probability of drawing an expensive card versus an artifact, a creature versus a land, and even the right land versus the wrong land. Same thing with the marble problem, which is a way better way of explaining this concept. So the marble problem is you have a bag of marbles. Okay? you know exactly what's in that bag. In fact, I chucked it in front of you and went, hey, look. See these 4 black marbles? Put it in the bag. See these 8 reds? Put them in the bag. See these 6 yellows? Put them in the bag. Okay, now, stick your hand in and grab a marble. What is the probability that you would grab a black marble? It's the same concept, except we're going to do it in kind of like a reverse way. But you may be wondering first, why this for Magic the Gathering? It makes no sense. Why the marble problem? Well, just like the marble problem, you know exactly what colors you're playing with. You're not going to reach into the bag and suddenly pull out a blue marble from our previous example. Same thing with this deck. You know exactly what colors you're playing with. If you're playing with a Jund deck, you're not going to be playing with blue cards at all. And then you also know how many lands you need in the deck. So let's say you compiled all this data of cards you want to add, like artifacts and creatures and non-creatures and spells and non-basic lands. The leftover is your basic lands, and you know exactly how many cards are there. And also, the last thing, which I forgot to put up there, is that you know how much your 3 CMC cards cost. For anybody who doesn't know, CMC means converted mana cost cards. It's all the mana symbols and the pips, which will be used throughout this episode, so I'll explain what a pip is. A pip is the colored portion of a card. For example, when we get to the Kaalia deck in this video, you will see that it has one colorless, and then it will have 3 different pips. A red pip, a black pip, and a white pip. Those are the pips. It also helps with devotion. So, if you played the Theros set that came out, and you saw that it said devotion, count the number of pips on the field, that's what it means. Alright? So, now that we know all that, how do we best use this information? So we're going to take this example, and this is the example that I told you about, the Kaalia of the Vast. This is a commander deck, so we have 100 cards. We put in all our juicy creatures, all our demons, clerics, and not demons, clerics, and dragons, our angels, demons, and dragons. Well, technically angels are clerics, but we don't need to get into that right now. So all our angels, demons, and dragons, we've entered them all into this deck. We've got our ramp spells, we put them in there. We got our non-basic lands like Castle Ardenvale, and we threw that in there. Alright? And let's say by the time you get all those stuff in there, you're left with a stack of non-basic lands. Okay? That, you're like, okay, well, I have some Evolving Wilds, I have some Terramorphic Expanses, I got a few Fabled Passages in here. We need some non-basic lands. So, you come out to the reasonable number of 28 is left over. Now, some decks, you're going to have more non-basic lands than others, say 5 color. But, it works. So, what do we do in this situation? Because we're down to our just non-basic lands, and we're looking at them. So what do? We sort the cards into 3 piles, and I'm sorry I wrote 4 because I was kind of in a rush to make this episode. But you sort this into 3 piles. Your basic land pile. What I usually do is throw in sleeves. Just cards that don't freaking matter in the deck. For instance, if it's a Jund deck, I will throw in islands to replace the non-basic lands for the time being, until I built the deck. It's usually near the end where I finally switch them out for the right number of lands. So, using that method, you can determine how many non-basic lands you'll need. Cards with CMC 3 or less that are not colorless. Now, this is very important. Remember, we're talking about the pips. We need the pips to determine our mana base. You cannot have a Sword of Feast and Famine and have it as a pip. It's unacceptable. Okay? So I want you to take those cards and throw them out of here. Or throw them into the next pile. I don't care. But all we care about is cards 3 CMC and less, because those are the cards that you are most likely to draw. In a game of CEDH, or in a game of Standard, or in a game of Draft, you are most likely to draw and play 3 CMC or less cards from your deck. So, the last part is just everything else. You know, your cards that cost 4 CMC or greater. Your commander, for example. If your commander is 3 CMC or less, don't worry about it. Because your commander can be played at any time. Okay? And also, it's escalating in cost the more times you play it. For example, if it goes into exile, you can choose to put it into the command zone. And when you put it into the command zone, it costs 2 more than the previous time you paid for it. So let's say you paid for it 2 times during the game, and you just threw it into exile, and then you chose, oh, I want this to go to the command zone. Okay? Now it costs 6 plus its original converted mana cost, so it's not reliable for our data purposes of how to throw in basic lands that are correct and appropriately statistically valid for your deck. But this also includes all your 4 CMC or greater, your artifacts, your non-basic lands. You know, if you got a Temple of Triumph, congratulations, that's okay. Throw it into the side. We're caring about the non-basic lands. Your Terramorphic Expanses and your freaking Evolving Wilds doesn't matter here. So, keep that in mind. Then, keep a note of your lands. Keep a note of those basic lands up there. Let's say you, in our previous problem, you had 28. That number is going to be very important coming up. Now, I'm going to have another video going over in depth of how to do this by hand. So you're actually going to see an actual deck I have built using these rules. And it's been more effective than anything else I've done when I was playing Magic. And usually what I did when I was a newbie was grab a bunch of lands and throw them in there. You know, I paid attention to the colors, but that's about it. And I just grabbed a bunch of lands. And I think the time I played Commander is the time I realized this. So, the time I started building my own Commander deck, which was a 4-color Commander, I realized this. And realized that statistics can help you through this Magic the Gathering section. This crucial Magic the Gathering section, because it can determine your games through and through. So, I will be seeing y'all in a little bit to show you a video of the exact steps you just went through. Except I'm going to be showing you the math behind it and explaining what I've done. So, see you in a bit. Alright, so the continuation of that PowerPoint slide, we talked about splitting your deck into 3 different groups. Okay, so this group right here is my 3 CMC or less. This group right here is all of my artifacts. So like you can see, your things that cost 4 mana or above, your non-basic lands, your artifacts, basically just anything. What's a good word for it? I just want to make sure. Oh, also, I forgot to add into the video your X spells, because usually your X spells you'll play later on in the game rather than immediately. So your X spells will be thrown into this category as well. Okay, so anything that has an X in the converted mana cost, for example, I have Finale of Glory right here that has X and 2 white. I won't be paying 2 white to immediately cast this, like I would be if I was playing Enlightened Tutor, for example. Alright? The reason why I'm disassembling this deck is because I have to fix the lands anyway, so it's a good time to show you how I fix non-basic lands. So, I did the count. These are my non-basic lands, all of them. So like you can see, they're all my non-basic lands. I only got one mountain in here, which is why I need to change it up a little bit. Because right now I can see that my mountains are bigger than my white spells, so I may need to change up the lands in this deck. So I counted them all up ahead of time. I had 16 lands. In fact, here's the board I'll be using to show all my work. I have 16 lands. Sorry, I'm messing with a camera that's horrible. Let's try to clean it off. There you go, 16 lands. Alright, and then I threw... The reason why I say go ahead and throw your commanders aside is because you can exponentially pay for her. So the commander for this deck is Kaikar, Wings Fury. This is supposed to be like a token deck that capitalizes on you playing non-creature spells. So, we're going to put all those to the side. We don't really need these lands at this point. So, and then your other stack is your 3 CMC or less with no artifacts. And I've already taken it a step further, so I'll explain that in a little bit. So, all these piles have no artifacts in them. They're 3 CMC or less, and they have the pips. The pips are these things in the corner. So the difference between this and this is that you don't count the colorless. Right here, you see how Impact Tremors has one and then a color? That one is not a pip. That's just your anything goes in it pile. So, you do your one color, the red. Okay? Now, one other thing. Cards like these are fine. These are split cards from Amonkhet. And the reason why I say these are fine is because you're more likely to play the first half first than to have discarded and played the second half because of this aftermath. It has to be in the graveyard in order for you to play this half. So this card is fine, but any other split cards, those CMCs get added up. Alright? Now, we are going to do what I always do when I do my land bases. So I'm going to put all these to the side, and I'm going to show my work. So, and I'm also going to bring up a calculator on screen, so that way y'all can see what I'm doing. So I wrote the amount of lands. This will be important later on. Okay? Then, we write down, well, we have 3 colors. We have white, which is W. We have blue, which is going to be represented by this U. And we have red, which is represented by this red. Now remember, in the marble problem, you're reaching in and grabbing a pip, basically. You're reaching into the bag and grabbing a pip. So, what I usually like to do is start with my multicolored cards. And I got 2 for this one. To start off, I got Saheeli. How you calculate her is because she's a hybrid. Instead, just if you have 2 hybrids, do it the one that is most common, which is you having 1 red and 1 blue, which is more common than anything else. So, you would do 1 red, 1 blue. So I would mark 1 red, 1 blue. Alright? And then I have a Teferi, Time Raveler. Don't count the one, so the one's out of here. We got a white and a blue. Sorry, my camera's all dazed as hell, but I hope you're getting an understanding of how to do this. Okay? Then, what you can do, so you add this to the final total. So we got one extra white, two extra blue, and one extra red to the final totals of whatever the stacks are called. So this is the blue stack. Modal lands, you don't have to worry about them. Count the original card. So for example, if the original card, like I have right here, which is going to come up, which would be Slundi Vision. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but here's Slundi Vision. It's a modal land that transforms into a island. You can definitely count this as your pip. That's why I'm counting it in this. If it can be played as a spell, it will be played as a spell, basically. Think of it as it will be played as a spell, rather than it can be played as a land. Alright, so let's start. So we got 1 pip, 2 pip, 3 pip, 4 pip, 5 pip, 6 pip, 7 pip, 8 pip, 9 pip, 10, 11 pip because of Flood of Recollection, which is 2 pips. So we got 11, 12, 13 extra blue pips. So we add plus 13, which gives us a total of 2 plus 13, which is 25 for our blue pips. Okay. Our white pips. So we will have 1 plus 1 pip, 2 pips, 3 pips, 4 pips, 5 pips, 6 pips. So we got 6 pips there. So we will add 6. That gives us 7. Alright. And then our red pips are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 reds. So we add our 7, which gives us 8. We add our complete total. That's going to be 30. As you know, it's going to be 40. It's going to be 40 because 8 plus 5 is 13. Plus another 7 is 20. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Giving us 40. Alright, then I got to switch it over to the calculator. So I am going to go ahead and do that. And switch it over to the calculator. Alright, so we got our handy dandy calculator from Google. Thank you, Google. So then what we do, ready to go. There you go. So then what we do is we take our numbers here. So it's 7 over our total. So our pips over our total. So we have W, U, and R as appropriate. Then we have 7 over 40, 25 over 40, and 8 over 40. Now 25 over 40 is going to mean that we're going to be more heavy on blue, which is fine for this deck. So let's go ahead and go to our calculator. Our calculator is going to go 7 divided by 40, which is, according to the calculation on screen, our percentage. We have to move the decimal place over 2, so 2 to the right. So it would be, instead of 0.7175, it's going to be 17.5 for percentage. Then we round up. We need to get to the whole percentage. So this is going to equal 18% of your lands. So this is 18% of your lands. Alright. You do the same thing for the other two. So we have 25 over 40. 25 divided by 40. Which is, I was right. So that's 0.625. So make sure to move decimal place over 2 like a percent would. Then round up. So that's going to be 63% of our blues are going to be lands. So 63% of our lands are going to be blue, excuse me. And then we have our reds, which is 8 divided by 40, which should give me 1/5. Yep, so it gives us 0.2, which just gives us 20%. Because we moved over decimal place twice, and we have nothing to round up. So, add them up. Remember that margin of error. It's supposed to be between 98% and 102%. So when we add it up, we're going to get 1. 1 goes up here. 2, 8, 10. So it's going to be 101%, which is in our margin of error. So we got it correct. So we know our percentages are right. Now, what we do is we actually multiply each percentage by our number of lands we have for a basic land set. So we have 16 per land. 16, 16. And you multiply them to the original percent. So, for instance, our white is going to be 0.18 times 16. So, 0.18 times 16 is going to be 2.88, which rounded up is going to be 3. Let's do the same for the other two. So for our blues, we have 0.63 times 16, which gives us 10.08 round up. So it's going to be 11. Always round up. Don't round down ever. And then 20, I accidentally hit that 0.2 times 16 should be 0.8. Or excuse me, not 0.8. 8. Nope. I was completely wrong because I'm tired as frag. So we got 3.2 rounded up as 4. So I can tell you right now that's going to be way too many lands. But we have something to do. So we add. We got 7, 18. So we have 18 in total. That's a little bit too far of our range. Remember that margin of error. So we got to remove some from the highest amount. So remove some from the highest spell cost. Because we don't need exactly 11 islands in order to make this deck function. We just need 9. So we remove 2. We have 3, 9, 4 as a distribution for 18. For our now 16 lands. And that's how you do the math behind deciding what your basic mana base is. I hope this was very helpful for people who are new, but also for people who just don't understand a good method to how to put lands in their deck. So I hope this helps them as well. Like you saw, this only took like maybe 10 to 15 minutes to explain, but it'll take simpler and simpler time if you got a calculator and stuff like that to help you. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time on Guard and the Idiot Squad. Bye!